Hello, this is Ken Spriggs here with part two of my diorama build for my Mandalorian and Ahsoka Tano figures, 7-inch figures that I 3D printed. There's been a little bit of a delay between my last video and this one. A couple of different things. Obviously the holidays were here, and so that kind of put some things behind and delayed them a bit. But mainly the main primary reason is that a lot of what I've been doing with this figure and trying to figure out not only her lighting, but also, which you'll see in this video, how to make her tattoos on her face, is what I would like to call research and development, where I'm looking into some new ways to do these things and some new methods, and trying some new techniques that I haven't done before. So it's definitely time intensive. That in addition to printing these figures and some changes that I've made in which parts and which figures I'm going to be using, that sort of thing. So one of the things that I'm going to introduce in this video is a new tool that I bought for Christmas for myself, and it is a vinyl cutter. It's a vinyl cutter from a company called Silhouette. Here's the box right here. And this is the Silhouette Portrait 3. Initially, I really hadn't planned to do that. I started working on the tattoos that I showed in my last video, where I took some vinyl and I cut it out. And during that time, I was even thinking it would really be great if I had a vinyl cutter and I could just somehow go in there and have these traced out precisely. But I wasn't planning to buy it. This ran about $179, which wasn't bad. I could not find one locally in my area. I had to drive down to Indianapolis, about an hour away, because nobody had it in stock anywhere. Partly because of Christmas, but a lot of the craft stores like Michael's or Joann Fabrics or Hobby Lobby, some of them just said they're not available in stores, period. Like they just don't sell them there. So not quite sure. The more popular Cricut versions are more available. That's the more popular and also a little more expensive version of this type of a thing. So I want to give some credit to Mark Fraley. Mark Fraley suggested it. He suggested the Silhouette. I hadn't really even heard of it before. Mark Fraley is a really good model builder. He does fantastic work on figures. He also made the Predator plate for me and the Mandalorian plate 3D printed for me and for Augie Gonzalez when we built those. Definitely kudos to him. He has one, and he mentioned the Silhouette and suggested it. So I started looking into it, and I had some Christmas money that I could spend on it, so I decided to go ahead and get that. Picked it up on Christmas Eve, drove down and picked it up. Very glad that I did. It's a really, really nice tool, and I'll show you here shortly. And it's going to really come in handy in being able to create my own masks, to paint some delicate details and things like that. Also, definitely give some kudos to Lou Del Masso. Love Lou Del Masso and his videos, fantastic. Obviously, Lou is the owner and creator of the Aztec dummy masks, many of which I've used on models. And he is always showing how he does that process. Right now he's working on a very large version of the Enterprise E, which is fantastic, and literally creating the mask as he goes to mask whole portions of the ship detailing and that kind of thing. So definitely a fantastic tool. Now, I'm obviously never going to get to be his fantastic creativity with such things, and his professional abilities and what he does. And I'm not looking to replace commercially purchased masks instead of this, but there are some basic things that I can use it for, and certainly things that aren't going to be made. I can't imagine Lou making, or Aztec Dummy or other masking companies creating masks for Ahsoka Tano's tattoos, especially since they've changed in different iterations of her. So that was kind of the key to it, finding the right version and making those. So, all right, so let me go ahead and show you how this vinyl cutter works and just give you kind of a basic overall look. And then I'll show you how I used it in order to create some paint masks for her tattoos, which I'll show you the end results here at the end of this video. All right. All right, so my Silhouette comes with a program with software that's made by Silhouette Studio, and here I have it on my laptop, and pretty straightforward. I'm still learning a lot of the features, but generally what I've done, you can enlarge it so you can see better. So you can see I have two pictures here that I just took off of a poster. Not a poster, but a online picture of a poster, and it's a fairly straight-on shot of her. It's not quite exact, so I had to play with it. I have some other shots too of the sides, of a side profile of her cheek, so I can get a better picture. But what I did was, you can kind of make out here that I have the outline already cut out. So what I did was I just enlarged this, and then you have a you know, like a straight line tool for some of the straight areas. Make that a little bigger. Okay, and so let me show you. So if I get a straight line, I can like start it right here, take it up, click it again, take it up some more, and so on, and just keep going around the image. And there's also a freehand tool where you can just draw any shape or image that you want. Okay, so I made it in two sizes, one for the large face as I showed, one for the smaller. Now after playing with it a bit, I figured out a couple of things. One, that I can mirror one side over to the other. Also that I can, get off of that. I can just click and hold it and then make a box around the entire thing, which allows me then to enlarge and minimize the size of it by doing all the pieces, because each of these lines are separate. I could also like just put a box around one side and mirror it over to the left and just have an exact duplication, which is what I ended up doing here. So, okay, so once you have it all done, you then go to send, and it shows the image. Now it's not going to print the picture, of course. It's only going to print this red part here that's actually cut out. So let me go ahead and I will move the camera and show you how that works then. All right, so here's the Silhouette portrait, and it's a pretty simple machine. It just plugs in with a cable into a USB port on my computer. It also has a Bluetooth connector. I haven't really hooked it up because I don't really need to just yet, but I just have it sitting on my desk here. This is my desk where I do my work. I work from home, so these are my work computers, which I don't have on right now. But what you do is you just have this piece of clear plastic. It's fairly thick that comes with it. It's called a cutting pad or something. It's self-adhesive and it stays tacky. So you peel off the paper, and I kept the paper that came with it, so I just put it back on when I'm not using it to not get like dirt and stuff onto it. It already has some on, but it's no big deal. So you can see I just have a small piece of white vinyl that I cut out of an 8x11 sheet. It can accommodate an 8x11 sheet, but I didn't really need something that big. So you just have to make sure you have a part in the area where it's going to print. So it's right here in the top middle, so it's not a problem. You have a power button. You have an arrow button to pull it in, an arrow button to pull it out, a pause. Pretty straightforward stuff. So once I get it ready to go, I just click send. And this one won't take too long. So it clicks a few times. What it's doing is it's pulling the depth of the cut that you pick, which I have it set at like 2, which isn't very deep of a cut, but you can go up to like 5 or 6, I believe. Actually about 10 probably. Okay. Hopefully you can hear me over that, making that noise, but there it goes. It's just going through and cutting the pattern out, and it's very, very precise, which is really nice. And I know that you can get other cutting blades and other things. This whole cartridge just clicks out of here. You pull this part out, and the whole thing removes, and you can add different things. But right now, the main thing I'm going to be using it for is cutting vinyl for masks and things like that. So. And since it's only doing those two parts right now, it won't take very long. Okay, and it just stops when it's done. Okay, and it'll bring it back out, and then you just push the hot arrow to eject it. There you go. All right, so I will show you a close-up of how that looks then. All right, and there are the finished cuts. As you can see, it's kind of hard to make them out because it's white. There are some other ones that I had done and I removed them, so you can see the remaining part inside of there. And this is self-adhesive, so I can just peel it back off of this this cutting pad and then peel them off and stick them onto the figure. All right. Here we go. All right, so a pretty cool little machine. It's definitely going to come in handy to for this figure, obviously, and then also for doing some other mask things in the future. I'll play with the software some more and get used to some of the features. I've been trying to find a feature, and if anybody knows, go ahead and leave it in the comments, but I'm sure I'll locate it where possibly I could get it to pick out certain parts like the white here and just draw a border around it on its own. It'd probably be more complicated with this type of a picture, a photograph versus just a static image, that kind of thing. But I'm sure there's a way to just cut around certain things since this is not a pre-done figure. You can get ones that are already cut out in different designs from Silhouette and other sources as well. So, okay, all right. All right, so here were the initial tests that I did when I was first just trying out tracing around before I learned some of the more advanced features. As you can see, these are kind of rough looking. They're not really exact. These are actually backwards. These lines don't go down, they go up. Like this one, like it's an F. And they're not symmetrical, as you can see, because they were just traced out. Plus the straight parts are really rough on them. And they weren't as long, they weren't the same. So once I learned how to combine the different features of the line drawings and the freehand and that sort of thing, and I got some better pictures too. I was trying to get this from the straight on profile, but I got some better shots of the side of her face, so you can see this image straight on from her cheeks, which is a lot more precise and straight. And so I ended up printing them off onto some silver vinyl that I had. There we go. So definitely those ones for her cheeks, you can see how precise those are, and they're definitely more squared off. And both sides are symmetrical. They're the same. They're the same sizes. Same design back, both sides of it. Okay, so let me show you. One of the faces where I took off some of the white ones that I finally got a more precise copy of, and show you how that's going to look. All right, there we go. So I do have that honed in now for the larger head on how it's supposed to look. And I think it looks pretty sweet. And this is the way that I'm going to end up going with it. Now, obviously, this would be painted, so the way it's going to work is I'll paint the figure, I'll get some primer on it, and then I'll paint it like a slightly off-white. And then once that dries, I will put these down just like you see right here, but only on the smaller one. This is the larger one for my friend. And then with these on where I want it to stay the white, I'll then mask off the rest of her face and paint it the the reddish orange that I want it to be. And then once that's done, I can peel these off, and these will leave it white underneath where her tattoos would be. So that's the approach I'm going to take. And then I did figure out how to scale this down the entire thing, and I'm working on getting a set out that will work on the smaller size. All right, so as you can see from the previous stills, I got the head painted with a just slightly off white. I took some white, put it into flat white into my airbrush, and just took a toothpick and just a tiny dab of a light gray into it and mixed it around. So it would be just slightly off white, which it is. And a little bit of a rough spot there on her side of her cheek, so I sanded that down a bit. Okay, so that dried completely. So I masked off everything but the face. Then I'm going to paint orange, including the neck, which I glued in place. And I showed that in the last video, how I cut that off of the other head, and it fits into this head just fine in the neck, and then goes down into the chest. Right there. Okay. And I put a darker brown, a flat brown onto it to give it a darker color than what I had it as. And I'm getting ready to paint the orange, so I'm also going to do her shoulders here. And I'm going to do this little oval shaped opening on her arms, on her sleeve. And I taped off the armor on her arms. This hand I had cut off in order to start working on some wiring for the lightsaber. The other one I have not yet, so I just taped it off, but I will cut that off eventually. I probably should have done that first, but it's not a big deal. I can still do it. But I do want to paint, once I mix up the orange, I want it to all be the same, so I have to paint her face, her two shoulders, and then these two parts on her arms so that it's all painted. And that way that's going to all be done. So I have to do one more thing as far as masking off the face with the tattoos. And I also, I'm going to do some things with masking as well for these parts here. And I'll show you that here in a moment. Okay. All right, so I applied the silver vinyl tattoos onto her face. I like this particular vinyl. It's nice and thin. It goes down securely, so it should block the paint very well. All right, so the face is ready to go. So I just have to mix up some orange to get that painted. All right, and a few more masks that I worked on. Let me show you those real quick as well. All right, so I just took a picture of these little sleeve parts and of the sides of the torso where the shoulders are, and emailed them to myself and just put them into the program and just traced around it to make a nice template. These ones are pretty easy because it's just an oval shape. And you can see the piece that I cut out of it. Here's the ones for the shoulders. They're a little rougher because it's basically just like a shield over the whole piece of the shoulder. So there might be a little bit of overspray, but I'll be able to just fix it up with some touch up of the brown once I'm done with it. But it's a nice way to just put that around it without having to try to put tape all around it. I tried making ones for the armor on the arms and on the back of the wrists. It was harder because it's a curved and molded piece, so I ended up just putting tape over it when I painted these brown. All right, so I just have to tape around this one as well, just like I did this one. So I'll just get the paint where I want it to be, and then I'll be ready to go ahead and put a coating of the reddish orange onto Ahsoka. All right, there we go. I think the tattoos came out really, really cool. And because they're painted on, they're not decals, they're not stickers or anything that's going to come off. At first I was thinking, the orange is a little too light. I put a little bit of like dark rust Tamiya powders on it to darken it a bit. I did the same thing on the arms here. Give it a little bit of character. And I might still do some more. But I want to wait and see, because it's really hard to tell with the face without the eyes being painted or the lips. And certainly with the brown band up on here and the silver gems on it. And then the stripes on the hair is really going to make a difference. So, okay. But I'm happy with that at the moment. So we'll let that just kind of sit there and finish drying. But I definitely like how the tattoos turned out. Those are really awesome. And then the orange on the cuts through the sleeves. A little bit of touch up will need to be done on there. A little bit of touch up. I still have to cut that hand off there, so I may just not do anything more with that because I have to have that opened up for the wiring. But that looks pretty cool. I really like that. I like the brown. I'm going to be cutting this chest plate down somewhat and doing some more work on fixing up her outfit to look more correct. So, okay. All right. All right, so after letting the paint kind of set a bit and getting used to it, and I tried a little bit of weathering powders on it to darken it up a bit. Still not real happy with the orange that I chose. It's just a little too light. I wanted to do a little bit darker. So I taped off her face again. I went ahead and put the mask, some new set of masks back on over the white that was already there. And I did the same on the arms and the chest for the shoulders. Now the shoulders had some obvious print lines in them, so I sanded those back down and cleaned up the print lines with some fine sandpaper. Getting those ready to paint. And I mixed up a darker color. The original color I made, I just had in this little cup. And I had a piece of tape over it to keep it from drying out. So I really wasn't happy. You can tell the orange on the top lip here is what it used to be. Sorry, and like over in this edge. So I put a little bit of Hull red into it, because I like how that has some brownish tones to it. And a little bit of, well, initially I tried some separately in this other cup, and it was a little too brown. That's too brown, it's not quite orange. So I did a little less in the main part, put a little bit more red in to keep it on the orangish tone, but give it closer to the brown so it'll go nicely with the brown in her outfit, in her headband and that sort of thing, in her arms. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this hair brushed on and let that dry, and hopefully that's going to be closer to the tone that I want it to be. All right, and yes, I do like that little slightly darker, just definitely better. Her shoulders also look a lot smoother. A little bit of speck on there. It's not a blemish in the paint. I still have to touch up around the sleeve edges with some brown, but I definitely like that better, and it really complements the brown, because it has the Hull red in it, so it has the brown tones, I think. So that looks really good. I did the same on the fingers, on the hands. And the little sleeve part. This one, the hand is separate, so I just did the fingers on the separate hand, so I would keep the colors all the same. And then here's the face, which I'm really happy with now. It looks a lot better, it looks a lot smoother. I could still do a little bit of pigments on it if I wanted to, but we'll wait and see once I get the eyes painted and the lips. I still have to do this headband in a brown, so that'll also complement it and go well with the with her outfit. So let me put her head on there, and I'll show you how that's going to look with the head on the body there. All right, there you go. So that's really cool. And it's a really subtle difference from the first one, but it really makes all the difference. It was just slightly too bright. This one is a lot closer to her actual skin tones that you see in the show. So I'm much happier with that. So, okay, fantastic. So let me go ahead and start working on painting the rest of her head. And then hopefully at least get that part wrapped up here. All right, so I'm doing some tests on the two spare heads that I have. The initial head that had damage that I primed and didn't finish. Not terrible. The first one I did, I painted with the white of the eye, first of all. And then I put some field blue on it to kind of give it a little bit darker. I did a little bit of white over it just to lighten up the middle of it, trying to get that circle around the eye to be dark. And then I put some clear blue in the middle, or clear blue over that, and then I put some black right in the middle. But not terrible, but they kind of look lifeless. The second one, I kind of skipped a lot of those steps. I just did more white because her pupils are very white in contrast to the orange skin. I then did some clear blue over that, and I think it naturally just has some lighter and darker parts to give her really blue eyes. And then just a little dab in the middle of the flat black. Let me get closer on that and I'll show you. So this is kind of how I want this to go, and obviously the rest of the face isn't painted and doesn't look very good, but okay. Just a little bit off on that left eye there. The right eye looks really good though. And I'm trying to get her pupil up towards the top of her eye, like she's looking at you from the upper part of her eye. So, okay. So I kind of like that approach. And that's what I'm going to go ahead and do on the main head. Okay. All right, and there we go. So there's the main features of her face. I think that turned out really well. Her eyes were rather tricky. I ended up taking a fairly straightforward approach after the two tests that I did. I painted them white and let it dry, the main eye. I just used some clear blue for her pupils at first. And then I just put a really tiny dot of black in the middle to give it a bit of an accent. So it kind of looks like she's looking off to her right a little bit, which is fine, because that could possibly be where the Mandalorian's standing. Coincidentally. Just kidding. I went ahead and painted her lips as well. Now for her lips, I just used some Hull red, and I mixed a little bit of red in with it and a little bit of white and lightened it up. Just tried to match what I saw in the images. And then for her headband, I used the same flat brown that I used on her outfit. That was particularly tricky because it's really hard to get those fine lines around it. And then I took some khaki and I thinned it out quite a bit, and I just kind of brushed it on in little pieces, little bits, to look like it's leather. And once that dries completely, I'll put on some weathering powders to to kind of dull down that shine and make it look more like leather. But her eyes are still kind of glossy, and I like that. I'm just going to leave them the way they are. Her lips as well. They would have a bit of a gloss on them. Okay, so all I have to do now is paint her stripes. I want to do a little test on that a bit as well before I do it. I want those to look sort of like a watercolor because they're kind of an uneven kind of a streaked paint. So, all right. All right, so as you can see from the previous stills, I decided to go ahead and redo her eyes and do the rest of the painting on her face. As you can see right here, I really like how it turned out. Made her pupils larger so they would match her facial look. And I went ahead and painted the stripes on her hair, which I just used some Field Blue from Tamiya. It's kind of a bluish gray, or grayish blue, I guess you would say. And I thinned it down very thinly with some Tamiya thinner so it would go on like a watercolor sort of and make it look more patchy. So, all right. So very happy with how that turned out. And her head is all completed and ready to go. And you would have also noticed in the stills that I had her head on some other body parts. There is a new file that came out just recently from CG Trader, which is an accurate sculpt of her body from the TV show. Her outfit, where she has like this pantsuit kind of thing. Her chest is very different as far as her outfit is concerned. Much more open in the back, more of her arms showing. Her sleeves have these little diamonds in them that show her skin through it. Her plating is a little bit different. And then her boots are very different as well. I really like the place at the bottom. It kind of looks like it's medieval in a way. And the way the toes are in the boots. So it kind of reminds you of like a samurai, that kind of thing, which is really cool. So let me put those together and show you how those look. All right, there we go. So really cool figure. Now I did not use the head from this figure because I like this one better. This head, as I said earlier, is from a bust print that is also on CG Trader. So I'm not going to be using the initial print at all because it's an older version of her from the animated series. But I am going to use this entire body. I'm probably not going to use the hands. They are separate from the arms, which is really nice, easier to print. But I did determine that the hands that I already have will fit on there and be a comparable size. So I'm just going to use those, cut the other one off, and use that on here instead. But I definitely like this. Her head's just sitting on there right now, of course. So what I ended up doing is, again, with the neck situation, I took, I had printed a couple of these chests in order to check the size, and so one of the smaller ones, I cut the neck off of it with a pole saw, and I just glued it on with both smooth sides against each other. There's the rough side. And then I just sanded around it. Sorry. And it fits nicely up inside the neck. Oops, falling apart here. It fits nicely up inside the head. And I can just paint this first and then glue it up into the head. And just like the other one, there's a big opening up in there. So I had to break the other one out of there that I glued in place and painted. So no big deal. I was able to do that without damaging it. All right, so so the head's all completed. So next I'll start working on her body and getting that worked on while working on the lights for her lightsabers as well. So, all right. All right, so as I'd mentioned in the beginning of the video, this video has been delayed. It's a couple of weeks since the last one that I did. And a lot of that is what I call research and development. So another thing that happens, and you probably noticed it's happened a few times now on this build, is that I'll be building the figure, which I started with an initial figure from CG Trader. And it's a good figure, don't get me wrong, and I'm not putting it down at all, but it doesn't look like Rosario Dawson, and it doesn't look like her outfit from the episode on The Mandalorian, which is what I'm reproducing. So I started with that, and that's the best one that I found at that time when I started. Then in a short time after that, another model, another 3D printed file was released of just Ahsoka's head, which is a bust. Fantastic, fantastic design, and I still think it's the best one out there that I've seen at this point. Someone else may release another one. So I turned in, to start using that other head and made some adjustments with it. And then throughout this video, and partway through this, just, within the last several days, or maybe half a week, I determined or found out and saw some advertisements for yet a third file of Ahsoka Tano with a very accurate body, with the accurate clothing that she's wearing, the accurate body shape. I'm not using the head from it because I don't like it as much as the other head that I'm using that looks like Rosario Dawson. And this does happen quite a bit with 3D printing. Now, there's some advantages and some disadvantages to this. Certainly if I'd already been in the final stages of finishing my model and had the wiring going through for her lightsabers and things like that, it would have been really hard to just abandon that and start over again. Fortunately, I was not. I had put some base colors onto the original body, and that was basically it. So I don't have a problem with putting aside what I originally started and starting with a new figure, and certainly one that looks so accurate as this one, which I really like a lot. So the advantage of it, of course, is that unlike a model kit where, first of all, nobody's making a model kit of Ahsoka Tano, and nobody's making a model kit that looks like Rosario Dawson. Doubtful that they probably ever will, although she's getting her own TV series, so it's very possible. But even so, even if it was, a styrene model kit takes, I don't know the exact, I'm just guessing here, but it takes many, many months, if not close to a year sometimes, to tool it, create it, get it to the factory, get it manufactured, get it sold, things of that nature. Even resin kits that are cast resin kits are not a quick process. You're looking at probably several weeks or even months to get those made as well and reproduced and put out there and become available. Now, this episode aired about a month ago, and within a short time, within a week or two, there were already 3D printed files available. And in just a few weeks, less than a month, there are several, and some really good high quality ones that are available. And not only that, once it's released, first of all, they're also very low cost. So the very first figure that I purchased was about $18. Now it was on sale because they had some specials going on. I think it was Black Friday. But again, like $17. So if I don't end up using that file, I may build it again sometime in the future. But it's not a big deal. It isn't like I invested a lot of money and now I would hate to go and not use that. In addition, the other ones were in the $20 to $30 range, so they're not that bad. So in the end, I'm not really going to pay more than I would actually pay for either a resin figure of her or a model kit of her, if it were even available. And then the best advantage is that as soon as I knew that it was available, I could immediately purchase it. I could immediately download the files and literally print a copy of her that day. and I can make her whatever size I want her to be. So I can make her the correct size that's going to match the head. Now in this case, I had to actually do a couple of prints. The initial print was not big enough, and I did a second one, and I didn't still quite like it, so I did a third, and then I ended up getting it where I wanted it to be. But that again is the big advantage of having a 3D printer and having the ability to adjust the size of it. And then I can take different parts from these different files that I own and put them together and come up with the figure that I want her to look like. So definitely a fantastic medium, a fantastic tool, fantastic thing that allows me a lot of leeway in being able to have a quality figure of something that I wouldn't have otherwise if I had to get it in a styrene kit or a cast resin kit. So I will continue working on the body of her. Now, at this point, they would have to make the most phenomenal looking figure or something in some action pose that would trump this one here and make me want to switch over. But I really like the way these ones look. I love the head. I love how it turned out. I think it's fantastic. And I really like the body. So I'm going to continue working on her body, which I'll be showing in the next video, getting that painted, and then also continuing work on her lightsabers, which I've gotten a lot down on that process as far as using the light bulb filaments, and I've tested some other things as well, and I'll be going over some of those in the next video also. So stay tuned. A lot of exciting things happening, and some nice newer releases which put me back on the track of getting this figure to be how I really want her to be. Now on the other side of it, Mandalorian is fantastic. I'm not going to be getting any other version of him other than this one because he is really accurate and he looks great. And little Grogu as well. So once I get her fairly painted, I'm going to then start working on Mando, getting him painted, and then we'll start looking at a diorama for both of them. So, okay, thank you to all my new subscribers. Stay tuned, and it shouldn't be too long between now and my next video, because now that I've gotten these research and development down pat, I'm pretty ready. I'm already ready, as you've seen in the video, to do the painting of it and actually start getting these figures together. So, okay, thanks a lot.